Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to be covering a section from Cambridge IGCSE Biology, the topic of features of organisms and subtopic cell structure. Now, in the previous video, we've learned about the basic structure of a cell, the basic structure of an animal cell. So in this video, we're going to be learning about a few specialized animal cells. Now, specialized animal cells, what are specialized cells? Specialized cells are basically cells that have a specific role or a specific function in our body. And to ensure that they accomplish their particular function, they have a specific structure and some unique characteristics in these cells. So specialized cells are those which have developed certain characteristics, and I must say certain unique characteristics in order to perform a particular function. And how exactly does a cell become specialized? It's through a process called differentiation. Differentiation is basically the process where an immature cell, let's say there's a new cell, an immature cell, the process where this cell develops structures and characteristics that are needed to be able to carry out its specific function. So that's what we mean by specialized animal cells. And there are many specialized cells in animals' bodies. But in our syllabus, we're going to be talking about 5 types of specialized cells. We're going to be discussing first about the red blood cells. And then we're going to be talking about these cells called the ciliated cells. And next about the sperm cells. And thereafter, we're going to be learning about the egg cell. And finally, we're going to talk about the nerve cell. So there are many other specialized cells as well, but we're just going to be focusing on these 5 specialized cells in this video. All right. Okay, so let's start with our first one. The first cell that we are talking about are the red blood cells. Now, the red blood cells are, of course, cells found in the blood, and they are, in fact, the most abundant type of cell found in our blood. Now, the fact that they are so abundant, for example, if you take a drop of blood the size of a pinhead, there would be about 5 million of these red blood cells. So the fact that they are so abundant probably means that they have a very important function to play. So let's see what the purpose of these red blood cells are. The main purpose of red blood cells is to transport oxygen. Now, every cell in our body needs oxygen, and oxygen comes directly into our lungs. So the red blood cells are responsible for transporting this oxygen throughout our entire body. And this is a huge task to perform. It's a very important function for our body. So the red blood cells have 4 main characteristics to accomplish this function. All right, so here are the 4 characteristics given here. The first characteristic is the fact that red blood cells contain something called hemoglobin. Now, hemoglobin is a type of protein. It's a protein that is found in the red blood cells, and it is this protein called hemoglobin that binds to oxygen and helps the red blood cell to transport it around our body. So hemoglobin is responsible for binding to the oxygen. The next important feature of red blood cells is the fact that red blood cells do not have nuclei. Now, this is something very different to other animal cells, right? Like the typical animal cell would have a nucleus. But red blood cells, for some reason, do not have nuclei. And why is this the case? Because this makes more space in the cell to fit in more hemoglobin. So by not having a nucleus, This gives more space for more hemoglobin, and more hemoglobin means more oxygen carrying capacity. So this is the second adaptation shown by the red blood cells. The next adaptation shown by these unique cells is that they have a biconcave shape. A biconcave shape is basically a disc shape with a thinner center section. So you see this shape over here. This is what we call a biconcave shape, where the center is much thinner than the outer regions. You can actually imagine this like a donut, where the center is very thin compared to the other sections. So this is the shape of a red blood cell that you would see under a microscope. And this unique shape maximizes the surface area for oxygen diffusion. So this shape has been developed by the red blood cells to maximize the surface area to carry oxygen. And then the fourth unique feature shown by these red blood cells is that they are very small and flexible. See, the red blood cells need to go all around our body, even through the thinnest of capillaries. So the fact that they are small and flexible means that they are able to squeeze through these capillaries and deliver the oxygen to every single cell that requires it. So these are the unique features of the red blood cell, and that is the first specialized cell that you need to know about. All right, so let's move on to the next slide, where we have our next specialized cell, the ciliated cells. Now, ciliated cells are these unique cells that are found in the respiratory tract. So they're found in the respiratory tract, in our trachea and bronchi, etc. And these ciliated cells are also unique cells that happen to have these thin hair-like structures on them. These thin hair-like structures are called cilia. And because these cells have cilia, they're called the ciliated cells. Now, cilia, like I mentioned, are hair-like structures, and they're always on the move. Cilia are always beating in a wave-like pattern, and they're all moving in coordination. So why are these cilia moving, and why do these cells even have cilia? The reason is because now if you consider our respiratory tract is covered in mucus, right? And this mucus traps any unwanted particles from going into our lungs. So the cilia, they all move in coordination, and what they do is they basically sweep the mucus along the surface, moving them up the respiratory tubes so that it can be swallowed and safely digested. So that is the importance of the cilia, and that is why our respiratory tract have these ciliated cells. All right, so now we move on to the next specialized cell. This is found only in males, the sperm cell, the male gamete cell. Now, the sperm cell, as we all know, is involved in sexual reproduction and fertilization. And if we consider this male gamete cell, the sperm cell, here's what it looks like, as you can see in the diagram next to this as well. The sperm cell basically has three parts to it. It has the head and the midpiece and the tail. So these are the three parts of the sperm cell. The head contains the nucleus, a haploid nucleus actually, which contains the genetic material. The midpiece contains mitochondria, which gives the sperm cell the energy that it needs to swim through the female reproductive tract. And the tail is a mobile structure which can move about and help the sperm to swim. Now, when we consider the head of the sperm cell, there's an important structure found in the head of this cell called the acrosome. Now, the acrosome is this structure which is found up here, and this contains digestive enzymes. You see, let's suppose this sperm happens to fertilize an egg, it needs to be able to penetrate through that egg, right? So this acrosome contains digestive enzymes which are able to penetrate and enter into an egg cell. All right, so that's what we need to know about the sperm cell. And now we're moving on to the egg cell, which is the female gamete cell. And again, the egg cell, just like the male gamete cell, of course, the egg cell is involved in sexual reproduction and fertilization. Now, if we consider this egg cell, something unique about this egg cell is the fact that it contains a lot of cytoplasm, which is rich in nutrients. You see, if this egg cell happens to get fertilized, it's going to grow into an embryo. So this cytoplasm has nutrients for the growth of the early embryo. All right. And just like the sperm cell, this egg cell too contains the haploid nucleus containing the genetic material. And regarding the cell membrane of this egg cell, there's something very unique about this cell membrane. The cell membrane changes after fertilization by a single sperm so that no more sperm can enter. So let's imagine that this particular egg cell over here happens to get fertilized by a sperm cell. Then the cell membrane of this egg cell changes so that no more sperms can enter into it. All right. So that's about the egg cell. And now we're moving on to the final specialized cell, which is the nerve cell. Now, nerve cells are found in the nervous system of animals. They are long cells and they basically contain the basic parts of any animal cell. But as you can see, the nerve cell is specially adapted. There are special adaptations in it so that this nerve cell can conduct nerve impulses very quickly. So that's the function of the nerve cell. These cells are very long so that the nerves can run to and from different parts of the body to the central nervous system. So they are very long. They're one of the longest cells actually. And these cells have extensions and branches so that it can communicate with other nerve cells, muscles, and glands as well. So these nerve cells need to reach various parts of our bodies. So they are very long. And in addition to that, there are so many branches and extensions coming out of it. And the final unique feature shown by these nerve cells is that if you consider this axon of the nerve cell, it is covered with a fatty sheath which insulates the nerve cell and speeds up the nerve impulses. So nerve impulses need to be very quick. And for that reason, there is this myelin sheath, a fatty sheath, which insulates the nerve cell and increases the speed of the impulse. So that's what you need to know about these specialized animal cells. And now let's take a look at a question from the question bank. All right, so here's our question over here. Which two features are found in both a root hair cell and a red blood cell? So we've just learned about the red blood cells, the most abundant type of blood cells, specialized cell found in animals. And we know that the red blood cell, of course, is an animal cell, whereas according to the question, they've given the root hair cell, which is a plant cell. Now, from what we've learned about the red blood cells, we've learned that the red blood cells do not have nuclei. That's a unique feature shown by the red blood cells. So any answer that contains the nucleus is wrong because red blood cells lack a nuclei. So let's consider answer 2 and 3. Cell membrane and vacuole. Now, when we see the term vacuole, of course, vacuole is mainly found in the plant cells. So again, answer 2 cannot be our answer. So if you take the red blood cell and the common features to that of a root hair cell, the answer would have to be the cell membrane and the cytoplasm. So that's our answer there. And that brings us to the end of this video. I hope all of you got a good understanding of this. Stay tuned to our next video.
Subscribe us now for more videos and content.